What is cinema?
According to 80-year-old director and producer Martin Scorsese, it's not a lot. Regarding what interviewer Zach Baron called the glut of franchise and comic book entertainment, Scorsese said the danger is what it's doing to our culture. He added, because there are going to be generations now that think movies are only those. That's what movies are. Scorsese admitted that I don't want to say it, but it's almost like AI making a film. And that doesn't mean you don't have incredible directors and special effects people doing beautiful artwork. But what does it mean? What do these films, what will it give you? Aside from a kind of consummation of something, and then eliminating it from your mind, your whole body, you know? So what is it giving you? Famed and legendary Hollywood director and producer Martin Scorsese says he doesn't belong in Hollywood, despite being there for 40, 50 years.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Studios are not interested any longer in supporting individual voices that express their personal feelings or their personal thoughts and personal ideas and feelings on a big budget. And what's happened now is that they've pigeonholed it to what they call indies. Scorsese says that film franchises are manufactured content, and it isn't really cinema. That is a really bold position for a lifetime filmmaker to take, especially since film franchises have kept the movie industry afloat for decades. Now, there is some truth to that statement. However, there's probably a better way to put it, instead of putting down other artists like yourself. So what exactly is a franchise? They normally have at least 3 significant films in the series, including sequels, and major franchises usually have a combined gross box office domestic revenue income of at least $450 million, although some older franchises obviously haven't hit that yet. Personally, I think franchises could be all forms of media. For example, the Ghostbusters. There's only been 3 movies total over the span of decades, but there's also been multiple TV shows, toys, comic books, and multiple video games. And I think all of those put together creates a Ghostbusters franchise. Think about some major franchises that you know of. Star Wars, Batman, obviously superhero movies like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, those type of things. The one genre that has a lot of franchises is horror. You have Friday the 13th franchise, you have Halloween, Scream, and of course this little ditty, the Leprechaun franchise. 7 movies. Whew, that's a lot. But what's so evil about franchises? For one, there's franchise fatigue. Take the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for example. You have over a decade of movies building up to a culmination that ended in Endgame. Then after the success of Endgame, because it is one of the highest grossing movies in history, the studios decided to create a bunch of TV shows and other movies and just start throwing things at the wall to see what stuck. This ended up being problematic because when you oversaturate the market with different characters and stories, it could be hard to follow, or it could be hard to care. Another issue with franchise fatigue is that their ideas may not be fresh enough to warrant another movie or television series. If you aren't changing the formula enough to keep the audience interested, it's just going to seem like more of the same. Like introducing another superhero, but then going through the same type of origin story over and over and over to keep introducing other superheroes. It gets tiring to the audience. So in that regard, Mr. Scorsese is 100% correct. Another issue with franchises is trying to keep the attention of multiple generations at once. A lot of franchises started 30, 40 years ago, but then trying to update that formula for newer generations while maintaining the attention of older generations is a very tough feat that most of the time doesn't work out. And I believe that's one of the reasons why you see newer movies, let's say the Scream movies, of which I've seen none, but the newer ones still have some success while the followers of the original movies are completely alienated by it, because they're made for a newer generation of viewers. But I would have to disagree with Mr. Scorsese when he says that it's not real cinema. Because what is real cinema? Is it what you say it is? Is it what I say it is? No, it's neither. Everybody has their own tastes and opinions about films and movies that they go see. It doesn't matter that you don't like something, so therefore it's garbage, it's not a real cinematic movie. Because that is just your opinion about your experience with the movie. Not every movie is made for everyone. And I know that's a hot button issue for some of you dude bros. But the truth of the matter is that not every movie is going to be for every single audience. For example, more recent movies. Blue Beetle would resonate more with a Hispanic audience than maybe a white audience. Now, I still enjoyed the movie, but there may be things in the movie that I just can't identify with because it's not part of my lifestyle or my culture. But that's the same thing with most movies. There has to be some type of hook that brings you into the movie that you can identify with. And if there's nothing there, you're probably not going to enjoy the film. Another reason why I disagree with Mr. Scorsese's assessment of franchises is that franchises can transcend generations. Let's take Star Wars, for example. Star Wars came out in the 1970s when some of our parents were teenagers. Those Star Wars movies are vastly different than the prequel trilogy from the 90s and the newer trilogy now. They're all very distinctly different from each other.
Why is that?
Because they are transcending decades of time. The audience has changed. The fan base has changed. And just general movie-making principles has changed. So if you've grown up worshiping the original trilogy, you may have a hard time watching and enjoying the prequel trilogy from the 90s. You may have an even harder time enjoying the newer 3 movies. I'm not saying the movies are good or bad. I'm just stating that generational differences in filmmaking and the audience can make it difficult for franchises to continue. But if you like one of those series, you're a Star Wars fan, right? So your kids can be Star Wars fans and enjoy the newer Star Wars, while you may enjoy the older Star Wars. And it could be an experience that you guys share together when you go to the movies. You may come out of the movie with a different feeling than your child does, but at least you're enjoying it together. And that transgenerational experience is one of the reasons why I think film franchises start to fail for older folks. Now, I am middle-aged, but I grew up on a certain type of film franchises, things made in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So when those franchises get rebooted or reassessed, it can be difficult because I already have this preconceived notion of what that franchise is. It's hard for me to take on these new characters or new versions of old characters because I already know the things that I love from my childhood. When you try to introduce new things to that, it can be rather off-putting. But if you really enjoy cinema and film, then you'll be more open to it. And you'll go into it thinking, all right, I know it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be what I have in my head.
But
It could still be good. So what do you think? Do you think Martin Scorsese is correct in saying that anything he doesn't like is not real cinema? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe so I can continue to bring you fantastic content kind of like this. All right, you guys have a good day. Bye.
Wait, is this thing on? Hello? Alright, I think we're through. Forget everything that soy boy just told you. Martin Scorsese is a god. We should just listen to everything he says because, he's 80 years old and he's been doing this for 50 years. Just because he's in Hollywood doesn't mean that he's a Hollywood elite. Just because he made his whole career in Hollywood. I mean, that makes no sense. If he says it's not real cinema because he doesn't like that movie, then guess what? It's not real cinema. Okay? Cinema is whatever Martin Scorsese says it is. So keep playing your little woke games with your little woke Star Wars and superheroes and leave the cinema to Scorsese. Alright, get out of here, soy boys. How do you turn this off?
Whoa, what's the matter? Why are you crying? It's because, it's because